Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Worried, and today we're doing a brand new Fury Warrior guide for 11.2. Now, this is a PvP specific guide, so let's get right into it. So, for stats for Warrior, for Fury Warrior specifically, I would lean more into Haste this season because of your tier set, but Mastery and Haste are both very great stats for Fury Warrior, so you can run pretty much whatever you like. If you like more Mastery, you can run more Mastery. If you like more Haste, you can run more Haste. I'd recommend at least 20 to 25% in PvP. I think that's a nice middle ground for Haste. Now, for enchants, I would run Stonebound Artistry on both your weapons. It scales very well with Season 3 and Season 2. Just the flat stat value for Mastery is very good for Fury. I would put Cursed Mastery on both of your rings just because it gives you the most amount of Mastery. And I would run Mastery Haste Gems because we do get a lot of Verse this season. But again, you can pretty much run whatever you want. Haste Mastery Gems, Haste Verse Gems, Verse Master. It really doesn't matter as long as you just have Verse, Master, Haste. It's good. Now, for Fury specifically, but mostly every class, I would pick up the Reshi Raps, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's just a flat mastery buff, and it's great for the beginning of the season because it scales higher than Honor Gear, so it's a nice like 2 or 3% damage as well on top. Now, for embellishments, I would choose the Elemental Focusing Lens. Again, the damage scale is very, very high. It hits for 600, 700k maybe around there. This season, it's very powerful, and it's just overall a good choice for your embellishments for Fury Warrior. Now, for the general builds, I mostly run Spear every game because you're kind of fighting a lot of things that kite you. Holy Paladins are very prevalent, so freedoms are difficult, so Spear is usually just a nice little utility spell, but if you're fighting double melee, you could run this. You could take out these talents and run a melee build with Roar. And you can run maybe like Disarm or something like that for PvP talents. But this is your general build that you're going to be running almost every game. You can swap out Concussive for Rumbling Earth, or if you're maybe fighting an Unholy Decay or Demo Lock. You almost always are spec'd into Wrecking Throw because as Fury, it scales really heavily off your Mastery. So it does more damage as Fury than as like Arms. So it's just like a nice utility for cutting shields into a Warlock. Now you might want to swap this for Shattering Throw if you're fighting like Paladins or whatnot, but generally always into locks I will run Wrecking Throw. It's very good. Into Warlocks, I like to run Demolition on top just for a big like one shot to the shield, but you can choose to do whatever you want, but that's just what I recommend. Now, most of the time you would swap to Mountain Thane if you're fighting, let's say, like a Cleave, but this season the 2 set for Mountain Thane in PvP is very, very weak, and the 2 set for Slayer is extremely strong. Now, this is, of course, nerfed by 67% in PvP, but the damage is not really what makes it very good, and I'll show you why. So what the tier set does is it gives you a Slayer Strike proc every single time you use a sudden death execute. Most of the time you're always going to have Overwhelmed at its max stack. It's very, very easy to get up to its max stack. But as Slayer, 3 Slayer strikes equals a sudden death. So when you're proccing these mini 33% Slayer strikes in PvP, every single time you're getting marked for execution every single time. So this makes it so you can constantly get execute back very, very quickly. You're already 33% of the way to your next execute. And of course, this is a buff in its own. In PvP, these are all 5% stats, so it's like 5% crit damage, 5% crit chance, 5% damage. It's just a very, very strong tier set for execute. So they have the 3% damage, the Slayer Strike proc. It hits probably up for like 200-300k when it's really nerfed. But on top of that, you get 1 mark for execution every single time you execute with sudden death. So that's very powerful. And of course, like this interaction kind of plays into Bladestorm as well. So you get Bladestorm back even faster because you have more marked for executions on the target. And when you execute with marked for execution, you get 5 seconds off Bladestorm per stack. So it does add up like a lot of different things, and it makes it very powerful. So yeah, this could do absolutely no damage, like execute damage increase could by 0%, and sudden death or the Slayer Strike hits for 0, and it would still be a strong 2 set in PvP just because of that proc of Slayer Strike activating that. But yeah, like as I was saying, Mountain Thane is very weak for its 2 set. It maybe, I don't know if the 4 set will make it good in PvP because it's only going to be 33% again because getting nerfed, and you have to run very bad stats to get 4 set as Fury. But the 2 set is just it's very underwhelming. It's maybe 1-2% of your damage is Mountain Thane. It's really, really bad. So even if you fight melee, I would just stick to Slayer this season. I would just stick to the same build. Maybe if you're playing RBGs or Blitz, you maybe can play Thane and it'll be fine, just because they did buff improved Whirlwind this season. So that's a very strong AoE. I really don't like running this in Arena, even though it is very strong AoE, because it feels like every single time you press Whirlwind as Slayer, you're not building your stacks, you're not building anything. The heavy strength of Fury Warrior is its single target pressure, and every time you're pressing Whirlwind, it's just this empty global. And sure, you get this AoE for 4 globals, but every 4 globals you have to press it if you're AoEing, and it just takes a lot of oomph out of your single target damage. But it does do a lot of damage if you run it into a cleave, but generally with the Bladestorm buff this season, your cleave is kind of fine. Like, it's not that bad. But if you want to, you can maybe, let's say, take one out of Cruelty, maybe take one out of Depths of Insanity, put it in here, or maybe if you trust your healer a lot, you can take one out of Invigorating Fury, put it into Meat Cleaver. I feel like if you're going this route, you might as well just run Thane anyway, because like as Slayer, your main AoE after pressing Whirlwind is Reap the Storm, and in PvP, Reap the Storm is incredibly weak. It's very weak. Hits for maybe 400k, 300k, and that's why as Slayer, the 4 set is not going to be good. You don't want to run the 4 set because in PvP, it's only a 50% Reap the Storm, and it's a 20% chance on Raging Blow. So it's like a very, very small hit for the stat heavy hit you're taking by running 2 crit haste pieces. Now for add-ons, you can just basically do whatever you want. Fury is not that difficult in terms of rotation and whatnot, but some add-ons I do recommend for Fury Warrior specifically is Frame Sword. This is an amazing add-on if you just want a simple way to macro abilities and have custom macros. It's very, very powerful in PvP, and I think it's very underrated as an add-on. So what I like to do is I make enemy healer macros. So these aren't focused, but every single time you cast or you press this button, it will always cast your Stormbolt at the healer, and I have that for my Stormbolt. I have that for Fear, and it's very nice if you just want to only target the healer. Fear is target capped, so sometimes if you just randomly press it on like a DPS and you're fighting like a demo lock, you'll fear like 8 pets and you won't hit the healer even though he's right on top of you. So it's like it's only 6 target cap. That's actually crazy. But yeah, I would recommend having at least a focus macro or using these enemy healer macros as Fury. It just adds like a nice feel to the class. You don't have to like tab target over to somebody else and Stormbolt them. You can just kind of press your healer Stormbolt, or if you're fighting a DPS, you just Stormbolt the DPS. I also have a focus Stormbolt, and I like this for off targets. So I have one that's just basically for person like kill target, one for healer, and then I'll have my focus target set to the off DPS. So then I can just Stormbolt the off DPS if I want to, and that helps just seamlessly Stormbolt whatever you want. You don't need focus disarm. I don't really use it that often. You can just have one disarm. It really doesn't matter. Now it makes Frame Sword very, very nice for Fury Warrior specifically. Well, just Warrior in general is the Intervene macros. So Intervene, you can set a DPS Intervene macro to other DPS. So you'll always intervene your DPS on your team in solo shuffle, and you can set one to a healer, so you always intervene the healer. So I have one set to healer, one set to DPS, and this is just like a fail safe for like if I'm maybe playing like an ABG or something and I want to intervene, just like a normal button. But yeah, basically if you're playing Arena, these are the only 2 you need. Another macro I like is this. I'll link this in the description. I'll link all the macros in the description if you want to check them out. This is a cast at cursor, roar, and spear. So if you just swap your talents, it'll swap to roar and it'll swap to spear. Because as Fury, you don't ever spec into both. As arms, you can spec into both, but as Fury, you can't really, because you always need Berserker's Torment. I mean, you technically can, but you would never do this. Another macro for if your Berserker Rage bugs. There's been a lot of bugs with Berserker Roar and stuff like that, so I just have a macro that basically whatever you're spec'd into, it's always the correct one. Obviously, cast that cursor leap. I have a focus charge Pummel. Your one button defensive stance macro, so you can just press one button and you will always just be able to go in and out of defensive stance. So for PvP talents, you always want to be spec'd into Slaughterhouse. It is your best PvP talent. They did nerf it very heavily, and it is not the greatest. It falls off very easily, but you still want to always run it because it's just free healing reduction. Battlefield Commander, you pretty much run this every single game as Fury. It's very good. There's some niche scenarios you could swap out of it for maybe like if you have a lock on your team in solo shuffle and you don't really care about if you're running Roar and you have the 5% damage or shorter fear. Like let's say you're fighting a war and enemy team, you have Warlock. You could run Safeguard and Disarm, really just bulwark your Warlock. But yeah, generally this is the average setup I would run. Enduring Rage, if you're fighting nothing that you'd run Disarm into, Disarm for everything you'd run that into, which would be, like Warriors, Rogues, Hunters, Frost DKs, etc. Death Wish, you're never going to run Death Wish. Dragon Shard's not good in Arena. And unfortunately, if you can get rooted on it, and it makes it very awkward. It's a very long charge. Like it's like double the distance of leap. So if you're sitting around or something you're questing, I'd spec it a Dragon Charge because it's just like a nice quality of life for that. But other than that, I wouldn't run it. Maybe in BGs, it could be really good. I don't really play Blitz that much, but it could be good in BGs. Rebound, it's not worth the extra 10 seconds on Spell Reflect. The cooldown, it's just not worth it. In every single thing you would run Rebound into, you just run Demolition into, because you only run Rebound into maybe a Warlock to one-shot him with Chaos Bolt. I would just run Demolition. But yeah, like these are your general talents that you run. Shatter into Warlocks, maybe Life Cocoon, Mistweavers. But Safeguard if you're playing with like a caster or something and they're getting trained for like double melee maybe, and the melee is maybe not all physical. So the cool thing about Fury Warrior is you can kind of just run in and start playing the game. So the first things I would do personally is I would run in Wreck, Onslaught, Rampage, and then just Bladestorm. Get your Overwhelm stacks up. You might get an Execute proc, get your Overwhelmed up to 10%, and getting your Frenzy up. And then you can just send your Avatar, your Spear, your Onslaughts, just Executes on CD, just really sending all your damage. As Fury, there's not really a general rotation you follow, but more like a priority list. So generally, Rampage always is your highest priority spell. It does a lot of damage, and it is your rage spender. Onslaught would be second. Execute would be third. Raging Blow fourth. Bloodthirst fifth. And, of course, Bladestorm is your burst cooldown, so you're going to want to send it whenever you get it. If you have a Recklessness, I would send it with that too. Generally, the reason why you want to Onslaught over Execute for that global, unless the target is really, really low health because Execute does more damage and you can secure a kill, I would always Onslaught before executing because the proc lasts 12 seconds and it can stack up to 2 times. Meanwhile, Onslaught is purely just one single cooldown, so you just always want to get it on cooldown. But yeah, it's generally your priority list. But as Fury, like you will always want to be pressing something. You don't want dead globals. It's a spec where you just you have to press a lot of globals to really do anything. So always be pressing something. Never have a dead global, or you're going to be getting very far behind. But yeah, that's about it for the Fury Warrior guide video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, leave in the comments. That is about it for me. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.